My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Today I'm here at the Manoir de Beaujeu on the banks of the St. Lawrence River, here in Quebec, near the city of Montreal in Canada. As you may know, the Manoir de Beaujeu is a conference center of Opus Dei, where we have been holding retreats and workshops since 1964, and it's a place that works both in French and in English. It's about 50 minutes or so from Montreal, west of Montreal. And we're now in February. Well, the temperatures are unseasonably high, and all the snow that we usually see around here is, well, it's gone. It's just melted. And even the ice on the river, on the St. Lawrence River, well, I mean, unusually it has all melted. And I'm here at this time of year, February. Normally the snow is like packed up, but strangely enough, it's all gone. The manoir is a 19th century manor built in about 1826 or so. It's built with this beautiful stone quarried in a local quarry here in the French classical style with a tin roof. And I've been coming here since the early 80s or so. And I always feel like I'm at home when I'm here. You know, I really feel that it's a place where I can be calm. You know, it's a place where I can enjoy the activities and really come here to pray. Now, maybe you too, you do your prayer in a church. Maybe you are able to do it there in front of the Blessed Sacrament. But Jesus, well, He's present also in your home. He's everywhere that surrounds us. The walls speak of Jesus' presence because He's here too. And when I come here, I look at some of the books, these old French classics like Molière, and I can see out the window there onto the river, and it's a place to pray, to read, and to restore the soul. And so since we are now in the month of March, we're about to celebrate the solemnity of Saint Joseph. Saint Joseph, that great saint of the Church. And he will accompany us now in this time of prayer. We'll reflect on this beautiful figure of Saint Joseph, this humble, docile, and stable man that God entrusted to the Holy Family, to take care of the Holy Family, to take care of Jesus and Mary. We read in St. Matthew, Joseph awoke from sleep and did as the angel of the Lord had bidden him, taking his wife to himself. He awoke. Well, we must awake now also from our sleep. Maybe we've been sort of weighed down by a sort of lethargy of sorts, maybe a certain passivity in our life. We're kind of like half asleep, you know. I don't know. And but we ask Joseph now to awaken our hearts, awaken our conscience to what God really wants, what is indeed the Lord's bidding. Joseph awoke from his sleep. He did as the angel had bid him to do, and we must also do what God bids us. And we must see if we've really listened to God's plan for us. if we have integrated God's dream for us. God's dream, God's blueprint for us, that's our vocation. And we can ask St. Joseph today to help us put into a better focus that dream of God. And St. Joseph is really a great saint to do that, because he's the humble servant of God, chosen by God for this task. It's like God knew that he could rely on him. God knew he could rely on Joseph. He was solid, he was trustworthy. I like that. And of course he would play the role of being protector and guardian of the Holy Family. Of the two most important people on this earth, Jesus and his mother, Mary. I mean, you can't get more important than that. The Blessed Virgin Mary, obviously, our Lord and God. And Joseph takes care of them. And that as a result of his divine vocation. We know that he's the foster father of Jesus. He's the custodian of the Holy Family. He's serene. He's a man of prudence. He's a man of deep holiness. And so we want to focus now on this beautiful figure. Because at some point in our life, God will ask us something as well. And he'll help us, Joseph, to understand and discover the very nature of our vocation. Something we should never get used to or take for granted. The fact that we have a divine vocation. And our vocation must always have the sense of vibrancy, the sense of youthfulness in our life. That's what our vocation has to have. You're married, that's your vocation. That has to keep that youth, keep that vibrancy. And we have a purpose. We're not like a car parked in an old garage, underground garage with oily floors and oily basement. And we have a purpose. Maybe we're not noticed. Joseph was hidden. He was hidden. He wasn't the center of attention. But he had a purpose. God had a plan for him. God had a plan of love for him, an idea for him. I like this idea that God's vocation is like a dream in God's heart. Our vocation is like a dream in God's heart, because the creature, you and I, are found in God's heart. And God the Father wants this to be different and specific for each living person. Different and specific. That's where we're in front of the mystery of divine vocation. And Joseph, the foster father of Jesus, he responded to that great plan. When you do that, sometimes you go to a cemetery and you go through all these people you probably don't know who are these people, and you see, at least you see the name, of course, but often what I look at is I see the dates. The person was born in that year and died in that year. And you make a kind of calculation. I wonder how old. Sometimes, wow, they're very young. And the thing holding those two dates, the birth and the death, is a little mark, right? A little dash. That's their life. Sometimes it's a long life. Sometimes it's a very short life. Right? But that dash represents our life. That little dash between those two days represents also our divine vocation. And it means that we all really have a purpose. And you see that on those tombstones. And St. Josemaria would say that God put us here for a purpose. And he felt that God was telling him in the early part of his life, he felt that God was saying to him, okay, now put this here. Okay, now move this thing over here. Now move that. God was giving him indications, And like at one point, a man that he knew, for whom he had great ideals, suddenly dies of tuberculosis. In those days, tuberculosis was common. Another man whom he really counted on dies in the Civil War. Another woman whom he knew could do great things, she died. Saint Josemaria had plans, but God said, okay, I'm going to move this, I'm going to move that. And he would say, Saint Josemaria would say in Friends of God, this passage, go over calmly that divine admonition which fills the soul with disquiet, and which at the same time tastes as sweet as honey from the comb. Redemite et vocavite nomine tuo, meus es tu. That's from Isaiah. I have redeemed you, redemite. I have called you by your name. Et vocavite nomine tuo. You are mine. Meus es tu. So that passage from Isaiah, Saint Josemaria said this has to be like sweet as honey, because it's an image of our vocation. You know, it gives our entire life, no matter what happens to it, the sorrows, the difficulties, it gives like our life stability in the midst of our challenges. It helps us to give purpose. Where he faced challenges, St. Joseph protecting the Holy Family, lots of challenges. He was afraid at times. And Joseph did all that without even having a single word of his recorded in the Gospel. Not a single word. And yet he's one of the greatest saints. He's like discreetly present there. And, you know, we look at this lovely readable here. Of course, it's a copy from a 15th century altarpiece. There are different panels here that you can see. And I haven't been able to identify all the original panels, but I know that at least one here is from an altarpiece in Germany from the 15th century. It's called the Mindelheim altarpiece near Nuremberg. So, you know, it dates to 1505. Apparently the painter, at least of some of these panels, the original painter is Bernhard Strigel. He was known to be a good portrait artist or portrait painter, but he also did, for example, this scene here of the Holy Family. There's different scenes of the Holy Family. You can see the wedding or the marriage of Joseph and Mary with the high priest there sort of overseeing it. And then we also see another scene here from the Gospel of the Jesus lost and found in the temple with Mary and Joseph finding the child there in the temple. But we also see this painting up here, which is the only one that I've seen the original of, this painting of Joseph working in the workshop with Mary and Jesus there. Jesus is on Mary's lap because she is the seat of wisdom. And Jesus, of course, wisdom incarnate, is seated. And there she is, as you can see there in the foreground. And in the back, you see there, you can see Joseph working away at the workshop. And he seems to be working with a kind of a lathe. And notice the many curls of wood scattered both on the table there and on the floor, which our artist here has well copied. But those curls of wood seem to testify to the hard work of Joseph. You know, he's absorbed, he's focused on his work, the work of his hands, because he knows that from this commitment, he is, of course, keeping his beloved family secure in their dignity by that beautiful work that he's doing there. And look at all those curls. I mean, that's a lot of work that he's doing, and that was his vocation. He was a master craftsman, you could say, a worker. And you can see here he's working hard, and by doing that he shows the dignity of his work. And I think he would have cleaned up those curls that are lying there, those curls of wood on the ground, and he would have stayed calm, but he would have cleaned up. The workshop would have been beautifully clean, right? And he took care of little things, little things to do with work, putting things away, caring for details, cleanliness in the workroom, a certain amount of dignity and order in the workroom. Things they weren't just left around, tools just lying around. But he didn't do that out of a kind of obsessive preoccupation with perfection, that things had to be perfect. See, the spirit of little things it's a spirit, meaning you acquire a spirit, a care of seeing God in those little things of every day. Sometimes little things is just like in punctuality, overcoming the temptation to, procrastinate, do the harder work later. No, do it now. That's a little thing, right? And other details like that I think Joseph did. He wasn't obsessively focused about his work in the sense that he wasn't a perfectionist. Right? But let's repeat that. What's important, the care of little things has a purpose, and the purpose is to acquire a spirit. That is, a spirit that leads people to really give themselves always. In every little thing you do, you give yourself wholeheartedly. Right? Like those moments of punctuality, like when you meet somebody, details of order, dressing well, being elegant. I think Joseph would have dressed well as well. And the result is that you make life pleasant for others. They don't have to wait for you. They don't have to wonder where you are. You make life pleasant. And that way we can, imitate Joseph, and I think he was like that. And that other painting here, which always has struck me, the scene here of the child lost and found in the temple. We have this passage from St. Luke, where Mary and Joseph had lost Jesus, and they were in an anxious search for him there in Jerusalem. And here we picture all the scribes and the Pharisees perhaps completely amazed at what Jesus is saying, as we can see in this small painting. See, he's here at the cusp of adolescence. He's explaining probably, I would imagine, the prophecies about the Messiah. Probably he wasn't saying that he himself was the Messiah. Maybe he was, but yes, he was saying the time's coming up. And he was probably referring to the actual prophecies from the scriptures. And he was making connections that maybe they had never made. Maybe he was referring to Isaiah or something. And they were amazed that how could a young guy know all this? But more than seeing that he was a kind of a child prodigy, they were amazed at the actual prophecies that he was talking about. And look at that guy over there. You see, he's got his book. He's saying, yeah, you're right, this is in Isaiah here. Or I don't know what book he's holding there, but he's amazed. And he's changing their vision of it. He's saying, look, the messianic reign is not a political thing. It's not a military reign. That future kingship will be a kingship of peace, of justice, of truth. And it will be redemptive. Who knows what all the things that he would have said there. But then, of course, we have here, right there on the right side, we have Mary and Joseph arriving amidst this kind of upheaval of all these scribes. And they were in great upheaval because they had lost him. And here we see her saying, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you. We've been searching for you." See there, of course, Joseph is in the background. And Jesus said, "Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know that I had to be about my Father's business? I must be about my Father's business." But my Father's business, wait. Joseph must have thought, wait a minute, aren't I the Father? What do you mean my Father's business? There he is in the background. He's kind of looking at Mary. He's looking at her. He's kind of saying, what did he just say? My Father's business? What do you mean? The Father's business. This expression. It's really the mystery of God's plan, his providential plan, his redemptive plan. That's the Father's business, God the Father. A plan that we don't always understand, that we find hard to understand sometimes. But nevertheless, it's God the Father's business that we want to be part of. And I think that's like, you could say almost as though Joseph understood that that's what it was, that mysterious encounter with those Pharisees and those prophecies, that was the Father's business that Jesus was undertaking. But of course, they didn't completely understand everything. But they understood that this was not within their purview exactly. Joseph was the father of Jesus, but he knew that his role was a foster father. He was the role of a foster father. He was there kind of, in some ways, out of appearance, meaning he was not to shine too much. He would stay in the background. And he was not humiliated by this, being in the background. He wasn't humiliated. He knew that he would help bring about God's plan of redemption, God's business. And we too must feel that role every day in the little things that we do, in the way we work, in the order we put in things, in our plan of life, our time for prayer, the way we unite our intentions to the Holy Mass. I mean, this is an altar. This is where the Holy Mass is celebrated. Joseph was humble to grasp God's plan, God's purpose. And his vocation was to permit that stable home of Jesus. Now, we may not think that that's exactly our purpose, but we do have a purpose. God does have a plan. The Father's business is tied to our vocation, that we too must be somehow part of that redemptive plan of God, somehow. So we have to go to Joseph, have recourse to him. There he is with Mary. He is there with Jesus. He's there also in our life. St. Josemaria said about Joseph that we should go to him. He said, and Joseph can tell us many things about Jesus. Therefore, never neglect devotion to him. Ite ad Joseph. Go to Joseph, as Christian tradition puts in the words of the Old Testament. See, the Joseph of the Old Testament, he's the son of Jacob, with all those brothers. He ended up in Egypt, and he ended up being the intendant of all the grain of the Pharaoh and all the riches of the Pharaoh, because he was a very good intendant. He was a good administrator of the Pharaoh's goods and his riches. And when people needed grain, when they needed support, they were told, go to Joseph. Right? That's the Joseph of the Old Testament. Right? And in some ways, that's what we have to do. Just like Joseph's brothers, they went to Joseph. Joseph of Nazareth can do a lot more than we realize. He can unleash the riches of God's grace on us, and then we can discover God's plan. Just as Joseph of the Old Testament unleashed all the riches of the Pharaoh with all that grain, which now we see as a foreshadowing of the Eucharist, but also it's a foreshadowing of the grace that God wants to give us, so we discover our role in the Father's business. That is, our role in God's redemptive plan. And that role is our vocation. So we should go to Joseph. Ite ad Joseph. St. Josemaria, he had a key for each tabernacle. He said that in all the keys of the tabernacles, of the centers, there should be a box for the key, and on the key there should be a medal of St. Joseph, and on the back of the medal it should say, Ite ad Joseph. Ite ad Joseph. So that would remind us that we have to go to Joseph, naturally, so they inspire us with Eucharistic devotion, but also so that Joseph, we go to him, he will help us to hone in on the truth of our vocation, to give stability and clarity to all maybe the difficulties, the upheavals, the misunderstandings that can happen in our life. Ite a Joseph. Let us really go to Joseph. And remember, the next time you go to a center of Opus Dei and you see the priest and you see them, in a maybe a mass or benediction, they'll put the tabernacle key right there on the altar. And when he goes to open the tabernacle, he'll pull out that key. Well, there's a little chain there. You can't see it from that distance. But it says, Ite a Joseph. Go to Joseph. How much peace he will give your life. How much peace he's given my life. I feel stable, secure. Not because of my qualities, not because of my abilities, intelligence. No, because Joseph intercedes for us, because he helps us to see God's plan, God's providential plan, and our role in it, even if it is sometimes a bit mysterious. And together with our Blessed Mother, she's always there with Joseph, of course. She too will intercede for us. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you've communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.